speak here perhaps with a little experience, that men who embark on the stormy seas of public affairs, and particularly those who achieve posts of leadership and responsibility, will frequently be overpraised by their friends. I haven't had too much experience of that, but will frequently be overpraised by their friends and over-attacked by their opponents. For, sir, if I may say so, the arts of propaganda are not of modern invention. They were in a flourishing state in the United States of America and elsewhere in the first quarter of the 19th century, and they've been practiced ever since. The great trouble about all contemporary propaganda is that it tends to create a false dichotomy. The people under discussion are, we're asked to believe, all pure and shining, or all wicked and worthless. This is, of course, absurd. History, we hope, sorts these things out and produces an immense variety of grey in the colour scheme. The currents of your history have buffeted your parties so much that no outsider could hope to trace the history of one party and find in it complete consistency or continuity. I'm convinced, and I suppose this is a terrible heresy, I'm convinced that you've had great leaders of one party who, generations later, might have proved to be leaders of another. This is, of course, inevitable in any changing world or any progressive society. Yet certain beliefs have an enduring validity. This indeed, sir, is the secret of Thomas Jefferson's immortality. American history, sir, has reconciled both of these conceptions, for it's been your glorious destiny, notably in the turbulent years of the 20th century, to evolve a system in which national power has grown on the basis of a passionate and Jeffersonian belief in individual freedom. The communist powers, who have created a ruthless imperialism of their own, to the acute discomfort of their neighbours, have, for diversionary reasons of their own, painted a picture of American imperialism, in inverted commas. It's therefore important to recall and to emphasize that the interventions of the United States in world affairs have been directed not to territorial expansion, but to the achievement and preservation of individual liberty in faraway countries in which that liberty is threatened. My own adult life, the great ideological conflict in the world, has been between those who believe that the national power of governments is something granted by free people to their political rulers, and those who believe in the all-powerful state which concedes to its citizens such freedoms as it thinks fit. We're all a little bit disposed, I think, when interesting ourselves in the emerging independence of some former colony, to think that democracy can be successfully transplanted in a comparatively brief time. We're so utterly familiar with what I'll call, for my own purpose, parliamentary self-government, as we would call it, that we somehow forget that it's been a thing of slow and sometimes painful growth, that it has come from below and not from above. You can't create a democracy as quickly as you can create independence. There are still too many influential people in the world who forget that the granting of political independence is not an end in itself. It is indeed a beginning, just as capable of producing a new tyranny as it is of producing an independent community of free men. There are lessons here for all of us. You're Americans, mostly. You detest colonialism because to you it connotes subordination. Whenever you see some surviving colony somewhere, you're eager to make it independent. But if I may say so, it's a mistake to underestimate two factors. The first is that a modern and intelligent colonial power, like Australia in respect of our Papua and New Guinea, while aiming at complete independence as the goal, realizes that the process of fitting the local inhabitants for self-rule must be relatively slow if it is to be relatively sure. We know a good deal about this territory, with its confusion of tribes and languages, its rugged mountains, its towns in which the Papuans are relatively civilized, comparatively advanced in civilization, and with its remote valleys and jungles in which sheer savagery still survives. When well-meaning people tell us that we should create complete political independence in one blow by the simple process of creating a popular assembly and arming it with full powers, we marvel that such people should think that self-government is so artificial and so easy. This doesn't mean that we favour dilatory action. Freedom is too precious a thing for mankind to be wantonly denied it. But the best guarantee of individual freedom, the best guarantee of it, is the existence of a community so constructed that freedom is its daily guide. I'm saying these things, sir, because I think that we're all in danger of considering our international relations in too limited a way. The great issues of peace or war, of armaments and alliances remain paramount, so long as we live in a world in which aggressors multiply and are strong. The great issues of trade, to which we're all currently directing much attention, have all the complexities which are inevitable when legitimate national interests have to be reconciled with the clear need for growing markets and rising production in a world whose population is increasing at an almost bewildering rate. But are we yet doing enough to increase our knowledge of other peoples or their knowledge of us? If, as Mr. Jefferson did, we believe that an informed democracy is the greatest and most humane system of government ever devised, that it elevates and enfranchises the individual citizen, that it reconciles some demagoguery with much dignity, are we doing enough to make it understood by other nations and other peoples? Are we perhaps too negative in our democratic faith, defending it against aggression from outside, but not doing enough to preach its gospel abroad? What would Mr. Jefferson do and say if he could revisit us and look out on this new world? For freedom was his burning faith. It wasn't something just for the study or for reflection. It was a faith to be practiced, but it was also a faith to be preached. My third reason, I've already mentioned two, has, I think, or at any rate I hope, a fine Jeffersonian ring. For I feel sure that Mr. Jefferson, though he worked primarily for the liberty of Americans and felt no call to impose his views on an older world, would, confronted by the problems of the modern world, have vastly approved the world defense of individual liberty, a defense in which the United States of America is playing such a splendid and vital part. Australia has a deep feeling for your country, not just because your friendship contributes so greatly to our own national security, but basically because, great or small, we work for the same kind of free world. The freedom of man, sir, the freedom of man is not a local perquisite, and it cannot be defended in isolation. There can be no better place than Monticello in which to remind ourselves of this great, though occasionally forgotten, truth.